build it. Sound money. Sound money. All right, that's what we teach. We are meeting. All right, they're setting up our meeting now. And all right, hodl, 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 save, 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 build it, build it, build it. Sound money, sound money. There he is. There's David Puell. How are you, sir?
Hey, how are you, Ugly? Pleasure being here.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. I don't know if we'll get a lot of followers, but I really want to document this because I think we're going to cover some real important stuff. And I really find it fascinating. You're a very young man. I'm looking at you. My goodness, how old are you?
I don't want to dox myself, so let's just say around 30 years old.
Oh, well, you look like you're not old enough to have a beer yet. So, but people start looking younger as you get older. So I kind of talk it out of one side of my mouth because I actually had to go to the hospital yesterday, guys. I thought I had a stroke, and it turned out I just, whatever it is, I have a face freeze instead. So it's kind of weird. Really.
You're okay now?
Huh?
You're
Yeah,
okay
I'm fine. It's just, I was concerned because I knew if it could be a stroke, you want to look into that, but apparently it was not. So, it was weird because I was, the first thing I noticed is I couldn't sleep. One side of my shoulder hurt, and then my eye was watering. And then I got up and drank some coffee, and the coffee, I said, was this a drip glass? Because it was spitting out the side of my mouth, and then I said, well, I went and took a shower, and I went to brush my teeth, and I could, or shave. I could go like this, but I couldn't go like that. And then I tried to gargle Listerine, so I said, man, there's something wrong here. So I checked myself in. I guess it's gonna be all right. But it just, I feel like like I'm drooling now, and I'm about ready to who knows what'll happen during this show. But anyway, it's okay for ugly old goats to drool. It's not okay for a young man like this to drool. So I'll probably doing that when I work on I'm going to make some designer Depends. I think that Depends with these little bees all over it would be a pretty cool thing to do. But yeah, I wanted to go through. I'm going to go through my history because Zezo Duarte is who put us together. He just watches everybody, and I have all the admiration for Zezo. Particularly, we actually featured him as our first speaker at the Working Man Bitcoin Cruise because he got completely wrecked with his Bitcoin hodl. And I said, you know what? Yeah, and you know what? I've been there and done that, and actually paid a pretty big price for it. So that's we really preach here, hodling. And so the number one thing is we don't want people to lose their hodl. And so I just preach and preach over and over again that the first thing you do is you get your hodl, and that should be 5 to 15% of your net worth. More if you're comfortable with it. I'm comfortable with having more. And then you don't trade until after that. And then you have to really, I preach more than technicals. Now, everybody thinks I'm a great technical trader, but I really found it centers around money management. And so that's what I emphasize, and that's what I do. But I also study fundamentals, and I do think money management comes first and then fundamentals. And then after that comes the technical. And I think the mistake most people have is they get it backwards, and they
exactly the opposite.
Yeah, they get it all wrong, and they think the technical is the most important, and it's really not. You don't need to be a very good trader to be a highly successful trader. That's always been my philosophy. If you're not successful, it's because your thinking is wrong. But I'm going to briefly introduce where I am, and you can probably refresh my memory on things that I might have wrong. But I'm an old school trader, and I knew very much about, and I've been actively involved in the gold and silver markets in their day, and took delivery regularly of both gold and silver contracts on COMEX. And so I've also done things like in the grain markets, actually taken physical delivery, and the same thing with livestock, which is really kind of a unique thing because you're delivering live cattle. or live hogs. And so, or frozen pork bellies, they can be frozen, and they're all different, but it's very, very important. But I noticed back in 2016 and early 2017, the Chinese had futures market. At the time, BitMEX did not, or if they did, it was kind of a bastardized futures market. But the futures that were available were trading at a steep discount to the spot market. And so and I knew that Bitcoin was a very young market, an immature market, and most of the chat, on BitMEX and elsewhere, that's, oh, Bitcoin is going down, because they looked at the futures, and it was anywhere from $200 to $400 under spot. And back then, spot was, I don't know where it was in January 2017. I think it was, pull up a chart.
It was around, I'll have to check the chart. I don't know it by heart and like tone base.
Yeah, I don't either. Oh, you know what? Do I have a mouse here? Where's the mouse? Oh, right here. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to pull up a chart. Well, at any rate, because I tell stories better than look at charts, and I don't think charts are that important. The important point was it was at a very steep discount, backwardization, which was very unusual. And it made me extremely bullish on Bitcoin. And because it's really not a technical situation at all. It's a fundamental situation. It's a situation that makes markets work and will correct itself, because as long as it's a legitimate exchange, the futures and the cash market are going to meet. There was a very, very serious question back then, though, whether or not the Chinese markets were truly legitimate. And so that's, I knew that the market was definitely, wrong, and it looked like it was highly manipulated. But it caused me, when I saw that what was happening, it made me very, very bullish on Bitcoin. And it stayed down there for a long time. So it was not a timing mechanism then. It just told me, hey, this thing is really wrong. This is extremely bullish, and it's going to correct itself. And of course, that's what head us into, the largest bull market that we have, from, I think we went from $1,000 to $20,000. And then the reverse happened, of course, when we reached the $18,000 or $20,000 dollar basis. We were $2,000 or $3,000 over. Futures were over spot. So you have a reverse situation where it becomes, particularly for commercial enterprises, to be selling the futures and buying the spot, or just flat out selling the futures and locking in that spread. So it led me to write articles about it. And this is why back in January and February of last year, when we were at the $3,500 level, and most people thought we were going to break down below it, I was very adamant that it probably wasn't going to go down, because there's just too many fundamentals holding that market up. And of course it didn't. It took me a couple of times to get long correctly, because I was properly managing the account. But that led me to take a long position with a small account that I decided to then do the subscription so people could see what I actually do, and with just 2 Bitcoin. And we run it up now to well over 30. I think I've taken 31.5 Bitcoin out. We're trading with about 2 Bitcoin now. So
that's impressive. Very impressive.
Following basis, and also led me to get very skeptical of the market last June, when we broke out through the 11,500 mark, because we went to about not only had we risen 4 times the price, but we also went into an extreme
contango.
Contango, and it was very powerful then. And I understand that most miners probably are not hedging, but I guarantee you that the good ones and the smart ones did. They sold because they could sell a small portion of their Bitcoin at those levels and guarantee themselves a profit for this year, regardless of what the price did. And when you're a hedger, you're really not trading. Those hedges are still on. because they're protecting themselves for their September and their December production. And whereas the speculators who were buying at those levels were paying a huge premium. It's like, you know, not only was it a casino, but it was a casino that was scraping off 20% off the top for you to have the privilege to go long. And then, of course, here this last month, we finally had our break, and we went down below 8,000, and briefly again we went into backwardization, and so that was basically got me bullish. So I just wanted to give you my background and where I'm coming, and I know I look at basis, and I do look at the funding. But I think you've done some studies on funding that I'm kind of interested in. I kind of see them as one and the same, but you have some different views. So anyway, I kind of outlined my history. David, if you could outline what got you interested in this, and what got you started, and where are you at now, and where are you going?
Yeah, well, I'm David Puell. I'm head of research and adaptive capital with. I work with Murat Makhmudov and Willy Woo. I'm guessing some of your fans and Tones fans know us from, you know, Tones live stream. We're mostly known for on-chain analytics, which is pretty much extracting data from the blockchain directly and developing trading signals off of that. But pretty much on par with that, I've found that especially funding rates, BitMEX funding rates, BitMEX being the center of liquidity of the whole industry, and basis as well, have proved to be a very reliable indicator. As you say, it's fundamental. It's technically not TA at all, but nonetheless, it proves a very reliable indicator of market direction. Not as much in market timing, but yes, in market direction. I first started to look into funding rates, specifically funding rates as opposed to basis. I think it was, I don't know, more or less a year ago or 10 months ago, especially, when I noticed that in general, right? Not always, but in general, price tended to go up, or at least not go down when the funding rates were negative, meaning that most people were short on BitMEX, and price tended not to go up or even go down and dump if the funding rates were positive, whether especially for a long period of time, right? So those were the things I kind of noticed. Going back to, I started to notice a little bit of correlation between, for instance, positive funding rates in Contango and the opposite, right? Negative funding rates and backwardation. So for me, it seemed logical from first principles, the way to use funding rates to trade the market. I mean, assuming that BitMEX is the center of liquidity, pretty much every strategy, hedging or arbing strategy passes through there. First principles comes to mind that the signals provided both in order books and market sentiment indicators out of BitMEX are very reliable, or at least the most reliable, because that's where the real money's at. And this was very noticeable, and I started using it more actively for my trading and the funds trading back in, it was about October, November last year. Remember when we were finishing up that descending triangle formation, yep. That huge decrease in volatility, and then we were every single bottom we got, right? Every dead cat bounce, every bottom of the triangle, the funding rates always went to back. The futures always went into backwardation, and the funding rates always went negative. right? So
yes, I wanted to briefly intercede on that. That's the first time that I saw that. And I did mention that it looks like we now have a paradigm shift, that basis may be becoming a reliable timing indicator, because when it went into that backwardization, it wasn't very long there, and the markets bounced back considerably. So could you describe a little bit? I always kind of look, the funding rate is something new. Basis has been around forever. And I want to give Arthur Hayes full credit. I had the most admiration for that young man. He's really taken the futures markets and the markets to a new level. I don't think people really know or understand that. I know people get wrecked there, but if you're getting wrecked, it's because you're not managing your funds. It's not anything funny that BitMEX is doing. At least that's going to be my position until proven otherwise. Because I've had nothing. And the idea of actually the social, what are they? The socialization of losses is also a unique idea. And the reason I say that is people don't really understand, if you're trading futures in a regulated market, I can tell you by experience, when you get a margin call and you get liquidated, you can owe millions or whatever it is until you're bankrupt, and you still owe that. And I mean, that's the way it is. It's on BitMEX, you are only going to lose what you have in that account. And that's the protection that you have, which I just don't, people just don't understand how valuable that is. I can tell you a number of horror stories of people that have lost everything in the commodity futures market. Oh yeah.
And then on top of that, right? Lose everything and then.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you this story. I remember there was some kind of a newsletter back in the 70s. It was called the Inflation Survival Newsletter. How to survive, inflation. And they actually promoted this thing where, at that time, the Mexican peso was at a fixed rate. And the central bank guaranteed that rate. So you could, and they had Mexican peso futures contracts, and you could buy those futures and it would always, go off on par. Right. Until it didn't, and they had the devaluation. And this guy only had, like he was just trying to make 20% on his money every year, and wound up losing everything because, he got caught in the devaluation. So, the stop loss didn't do you any good because it was an overnight black swan event. And there's countless of other, examples. So I do understand. I don't understand very much, and I don't pretend to know much about the back end of Bitcoin, but I do understand markets, and I do understand economics. And so, that's why I'm fundamentally bullish on Bitcoin and Bitcoin alone. And then I'm knowledgeable about the market. So I think that Arthur Hayes has really taken the markets to a whole new level. And I just admire him to no end, because he's also, he's unregulated, done it on an unregulated market, shows that a free market really does work and produces better products. And, wants to keep the U.S. out of his business. And I understand that part too. And so far he's been able to do it, because I'm very suspicious that the CFTC is really run by the industry. And so I'm not at all surprised that the Chicago Merc and bakkt is, on the case with the CFTC to put a lot of pressure on this young guy. So, I've had bad experience. I'm a U.S. citizen. They closed out my accounts. I had a lot of referrals on there, so it hurt. I mean, I didn't like that, but I understand why he did it, and I still have a tremendous admiration for what he's done. But I do not understand the funding. I understand the basis. So if you could maybe outline your findings on, because I kind of consider them one and the same. I don't know if there's a little lag or difference between them, but it seems like, if you're in backwardization, then you're going to have the negative funding. And and the more you go into a contango, then the more you're going to see, the funding go to the shorts. Have you?
Well, I actually have a website to recommend. Well,
Okay.
I have a website I could recommend for your viewers. It's let me just look for it. It's bitcoin.clarkmoody.com, and then you go to the future section, and you can see live. So you have several factors in terms of funding rates, right? You have first the price of the oracle, which would be the average price of Kraken, Coinbase, and Bitstamp. That's the oracle, because that's the source of price discovery that BitMEX uses for its derivative contracts, all its derivative contracts. Then you have, on top of that, you have the price of the perpetual, which is almost always very closely pegged to the oracle price or the index price, which is the average I just mentioned. The delta between that spot price, oracle price, and the perp price, that's called a premium. And the premium can be positive or negative, depending on if most people are long or short on the system, right? That determines every 8 hours the funding rates. So let's say the pair has a discount to the oracle. That means that the premium is negative, and therefore
We lost the sound. We lost your sound. Hello, David. We lost. Is my sound working?
Yeah, yours is working.
Yeah, we lost your sound, David.
Can you hear me
Can you
now?
hear me? Okay, there you go.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, sorry about that. So when we have every 8 hours, BitMEX takes the snapshot and assesses that okay, the premium is negative, therefore the funding rates will also be negative. So based on that, BitMEX calculates whether shorts should be paying longs or longs should be paying shorts, right? That's kind of the basis or the mechanism that Arthur Hayes and the BitMEX team invented in order to incentivize first of all, a peg between the price of the oracle and the price of the perpetual swap, which is the main contract on BitMEX, and also to incentivize, and it incentivizes that by putting a price, a cost on the majority holding that position, right? So if you're a whale, a major whale, on BitMEX, you can lose a lot of money if you're with the majority, right? So if most people are long and the funding rates are very positive, you can you can dilute a lot of your money, of your position, your active position. I mean, funding rates can go to normally they're 0.00, let's say 1, but they can go to up to 0.1, 0.4% of your whole position every 8 hours.
They
right?
used to have a limit. Did they take that limit off?
I don't recall the limits off the top of my head.
It was like 0.037 or something, and now I think they took the limit off, but it's never tested. It's never really gone past that limit. But yes, I remember there were times when, I would earn a Bitcoin overnight, on funding or pay.
Yep.
And it took me a while to figure out what was going on, because I said, what happened to my account? Because I was actually, of course, I was trading in a large way, not with 2 Bitcoin then. And then, I said, wow, what happened here? Well, why am I being, dissed on this? So it is, yeah. If you're particularly if you're in a large position, and the other thing is, if you're in a large position, it gets tricky because you have to, you can't just go in there and reverse, unless the market's real. And when people try it, that's why you see these little market spikes with the long wicks, or something that market's going way up and it wicks way down. Somebody just threw in a market order against the rising market and drove it back down. people think it's all manipulated, and it simply is not. That's just the way the markets work.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's manipulated. I think the markets, especially Bitcoin, I think it's just a race to the bottom. Everyone trying to outmaneuver each other, especially whales. But even between whales, it's fair game. Like that's
So
manipulation. You
your
shouldn't be
work
trading.
is basically you are trying to use the funding rate as a timing mechanism. I never taught it as being a timing mechanism until this last year. I'm starting to say, hey, the one thing is I've learned about markets too is you never can get set in your ways that this is the way things have been and therefore it will always be.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
in my view of the Bitcoin market, the anomaly was the backwardization, which was just nonsense and was being manipulated by the Chinese market and a bunch of amateurs that didn't really understand markets. And now I think that there's a lot more, the market is maturing. There's a lot more sophisticated players in there. We know what basis and funding is all about. Funding is the new one. And I have not looked at that. I just kind of feel like they seem to be enough related. I don't need to look at funding as long as I'm looking at basis. I might be mistaken on that. Is there a leader or a laggard on that, or they kind of just go together?
Sometimes they diverge. For instance, occasions where funding rates are negative and the market is in contango. I think we've seen some of that in this recent, after this dump we had from 9K. We went into backwardation and then returned into contango as a much healthier spread in contango. While in general, with few exceptions, funding rates, or at least the premium, has remained negative. I tend to favor as a signal. So these are, as of now, my first principle rules based on what I've seen in the market. As a signal, as of now, I favor BitMEX over all other exchanges, especially because of the BitMEX liquidity. I would change that if any other exchange, derivatives exchange, comes along and gets a lot more liquidity, of course. I think that's one of the things that may make lose the signal from BitMEX and turning into other exchange or several exchanges or an average of those. That's one. On the other part, the longer the signal, the better the signal, in my opinion. So let me give you an example of that. We were ranging on the triangle we developed from 9K to 14K.
Can we pull up a chart? What chart? I can probably pull up. I'm not really good at this YouTube stuff yet, so.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, everyone remembers the triangle.
All right, you know what? Let's keep this. Because I'm not a tone raise, and so, he gets what we're talking about. Well, maybe we can. It's too bad he couldn't come on. I kind of invited him to come on, and then. In fact, I put it on a post. It said, no, you don't post it here. So I didn't. He says, I'm going to be asleep. And I said, and I think it's best that this just be a one-on-one because
no worries.
I know you know the stuff, and I don't want people getting on here that may or may not really understand what basis and funding is about, because this is more of a teaching mechanism, and you don't need to look at a chart. I don't need to look at a chart. And sometimes so
you can actually, for your viewers, if your viewers are familiar with TradingView, you can actually type on the indicator section, BitMEX Premium and Funding Rates Index. It's a tool invented by a guy called Neil Butane, and that pretty much gives you a live multi-time frame view of premium, and then it makes a calculation out of that premium into funding rates. But the premium part is important. You can very clearly see that for the most part, right, we were with positive fund rates and positive premium, which is the most important part, right before the triangle collapsed to 8K a week and a half ago. That period right there was mostly characterized by low volatility, right, and a generally positive premium.
Right.
That means that most people were going long. So, you know, first principle of the market, if everyone is long, you go short, of course. But also, a lot of the whales holding positions were in aggregate, on average. Most of the people holding a position, it was expensive for them to hold a long position. So there's more incentives to close longs and establish shorts and then dump on spot on the Oracle than to maintain a long position, irrespective of your hopes of, you know, going to new all-time highs. That aligned with the fact that we were still in contango, and we've been in contango for a while now. Pretty much dumped the market at a very, you know, violent way. Now, you could start seeing some signs of going back into health when we dumped. I mean, the backwardation was even the March contracts were in backwardation. Every single contract was in backwardation.
Yep, they were all there.
Yep. And
that's what got me. That's what changed. You know, I was bearish, very bearish over 11. Just knew it was going to break. I got a little bit fooled because when we went into that so sharply, and it's held up. I mean, basically 7,800 has held it, but I wasn't expecting the secondary, but it really wasn't a secondary on the futures. It was just the cash adjusting itself to where the backwardization went. So the range was still there. And so that's why I came up, you know, I said, hey, this thing, you know, it's free to go up now. It wasn't free to go up at 11 or 10,000.
Right.
It had to have this. But now that we've had this, it is, you know, there is, but the question is now, are we catching a falling knife? Or is this thing just, you know, have we taken out the weekends that needed to be taken out and we're ready to reverse and just pop back up? And that's why I think that maybe the timing is important. Like we reversed where we should have, but we didn't follow through. The 8,200 is a very critical area now. If we can't even get above last week's highs, then, you know, we probably, you know, this thing, I mean, I don't discount that we can go all the way back down to under 3,000 now. I never have. In fact, in June, that's what I wrote. I said, while we couldn't go below 3,000 back in January and February, with this run up and with the contango, now we can. And actually, it would be healthy for Bitcoin, and Bitcoin will survive. I've heard a lot of people say, well, we go down here under 7,900, Bitcoin's finished. No, we can go down below 3,000. And the smart people that know these have protected themselves are fully hedged. Bitcoin miners have basically, anyone with their salt, should have their production locked in, so they're at least going to be profitable for the year, even if we go down to 3,000. That's what hedging is all about. So I'm not saying it's going down there at all. In fact, I think that, you know, I'm long. In fact, we both went long yesterday on almost an identical price, and we're looking at two different things. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, we took that long. This is a small long we took. A margin long on the perp. We got it from 78 or so, and still monitoring it. Few things got us bullish, at least from a local perspective. You know, you had your extreme level of backwardation achieved from on the dump, and currently you have generally or consistently negative premium, which is quite bullish. It's significant. Now, remember, this sucks for timing because the longer the signal, the better the signal. And of course, if it shifts and rates start being positive for some reason, that's of course bearish. And that means that you should hedge further, or it means that the prices might be going lower, especially given that we still haven't reversed fully from the downtrend.
Yeah, well, it should be noted too, David, that at least I noticed that, you know, the Decembers were at a very small premium to spot, like $20. And I think the March contract was under $80, and which is very, very small.
Yeah.
And now I know, yeah, I was kind of hoping it would rally and stay there, but I noticed the premiums now, and that's kind of bothers me. I said maybe this thing's just going to completely fizzle right in here, because we have the premium now, where I think March is 130 over, so we gained 50 points on the basis, which, unfortunately, too many people are getting bullish again a little too soon. So
Yeah, you don't want
we'll
that.
see what happens.
Yeah, right
So,
now, I usually use a website called bitcoin.clarkmoody.com, tickers and futures, and it gives you a live feed of both the premium, or the funding, the premium out of which funding rates are calculated, and the basis for each contract. And it gives you OKX, it gives you BitMEX, it gives you Deliverable, all at the same time.
well, I'm glad there's a lot of new people that are looking into this thing, because, as an old timer, that was one of the first things I studied and looked at. And then apparently a lot of you guys, maybe you saw my article and looked into it too, but you're taking it to a home. It's kind of like Tyler Jenks, he did his hyperwave, and I had the utmost respect for that. And I said, Tyler, I know where you got that hyperwave. I said, you don't have to be a student of Ted Warren, are you? And he said, well, yes, I am. And he said, that's exactly where it came from. So it's just a different way of, I'm not much on Elliott Wave or any of these other waves, but I grabbed hold of that one right away, because it's very simple. And I'm kind of, if you can't, I'm kind of a gatekeeper, because if you can't explain it to me, you're not going to explain it to many people, because I'm kind of hard. I'm from Missouri, and it takes me a long time to get things. I'm still not persuaded yet on what is it, the Lightning Network, because I don't see why it's necessary. It seems like it's Bitcoin on top of Bitcoin. But I wanted to go to another subject briefly, because maybe you can give me your thoughts on this, because you were talking, I agree with you completely that there's really only one viable market there that's really useful for commercial business and hedging. And that's Arthur Mays's BitMEX. I mean, I just take my hat off to him for what he's done on that. But the bakkt has really raised my my ear, and also maybe my ire. I have looked at it, everything that's available out there that I've been able to find, and I think we both have looked at the same thing. And if it's truly a deliverable contract, it's a game changer. But I have yet to see if it really is. And so I call it, is it bakkt truly deliverable, or is it the Hotel California where we can check in but can't check out? And and I think that, I think I make a pretty good case on it. And hey, anybody from bakkt or that knows more about this than I do, I'd welcome them to get on with this. But basically, I've taken delivery of gold and silver, and actually taken and made delivery in livestock and grains. So I understand the delivery mechanism. What bothered me from the get-go was, at first I dismissed the bakkt completely, because the delivery mechanism was created by their storage facility. For example, if I'm taking delivery of gold or silver, there's a number of approved storage facilities. It could be Chase, it could be Bank of America, it could be most of it's an Iron Mountain Depository, because that's independent from any bank. And then when you take delivery, you get a certificate, and you have to have an authorized person pick it, like Brinks, you schedule, and you can pick up your physical gold. And so it's really, and you have to have those contracts in the certificate form to the exchange, 2 days before the delivery day. They have to be on, it no longer is a margined account, it's fully margined. And so my question is the on-ramp and off-ramp on bakkt, because theoretically, and what I've seen, it could be a very, very powerful tool, and would be it would be the premier Bitcoin exchange if it's truly deliverable, and what mechanisms they have in place to make it so. And kind of my idea is it you should be able to send Bitcoin and have a deliverable certificate within 72 hours or 3 days. And that would seem like it would be possible. And
why is that so important to you?
Pardon?
Why is that so important to you? The mechanism of the delivery aspect.
Okay, I'm a buyer and I bought Bitcoin for delivery. I'm going to get this bakkt certificate from their authorized separate exchange that's a completely separate entity. But I don't want to, of course, keep it there, except maybe a small, trading account like I do on BitMEX. Mm-hmm. So as soon as I take delivery of this, how long does it take for me to exchange that certificate for the actual Bitcoin sent to my private address? And that's the mechanism that I see as completely absent. It's not explaining to any of us how this is done. Now, I would think that a broker, a member of the exchange should be able to tell us how it's done. Every other futures contract, there's very specific protocol that you take in order to actually, pick up those livestock who need to be fed and watered during the whole transfer system, or grains which have to be stored in an elevator, whether it be in, Chicago or Kansas City or somewhere on the outskirts thereof, or livestock, whether you're taking delivery in Iowa or Kansas. So the same thing needs to be done if it's truly deliverable exchange, then you have to be able to take delivery of that certificate and within a reasonable amount of time have it off exchange. And I haven't seen anything addressing that. And have you? Give me your thought.
I've seen a bunch of, especially on the bakkt blog, I've seen their custody solutions. They go through them, talk about multi-signature wallet insurance. They have, I think, 100 million insurance on the phone.
Well, let me say this: the insurance is pretty well worthless. That's a great sales gimmick, but I'm familiar with that. It's only insured, if it's minor. If it's a big, and that's the whole thing. If it's a big one, it's not. It's usually covered, by something like Lloyd's of London. But if there's an internal theft of the gold, it's usually, it just depends on how it is. For example, if I was running a business, the insurance I kind of dismiss. That's a great selling point, but it's really it's a security that's the most important. But when I'm talking about, I don't doubt that they're taking the very best security measures to keep the Bitcoin safe. But my question is, okay, fine, I have this Bitcoin with you. Now I don't want it to be with you anymore. I only want it with me. And I want to get it out of there. Because if they're just doing a certificate thing where you don't really get the Bitcoin, then it's really not anything different than you have. And what you've managed to do is you put your Bitcoin into a centralized location that you really can't get it out. You're now stuck in this new entity that's been created that's now centralized. So what I'm saying is, if that's the case, then that's really a situation of a Hotel California. Whereas if they have a mechanism where, okay, you send us the Bitcoin, you'll have the certificate within 3 days, you buy it, and you can get your Bitcoin out within 3 days. Now you have the market determining how much trust we're going to give to that exchange. And that's the question that I just haven't seen answered, that of how I have seen nothing about taking that certificate and putting it into one's own private off exchange location. And until I see that, I have to be somewhat suspicious of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I've asked around about it before the show. Nobody seems to be familiar with that at the moment. I'm gonna look further to see. Unfortunately, as you've seen, right, there's not a lot of people dealing with bakkt right now. The volume is what?
Well, and I think that's I mean, they're not, and until that's answered, they won't. But if they've got it, it seems like the situation is not so much that it can't be done, but they won't do it. I mean, it might be because, you know, but these are some master players in here, and this, you know, it could become the premier exchange clearinghouse. It'd be a clearinghouse, much like, well, that's banks before we had the Federal Reserve. Banks actually created their own private clearinghouses, and that's what the commodities exchanges do. If you have one firm that goes under, the other members bail out that firm. They don't make the firm solvent. The firm goes broke, but everybody, you know, all the retail customers or customers that are trading on their contracts are made good by the other exchange members. That's what exchange membership is all about. And it's a clearing mechanism. And if this becomes a private clearing mechanism for taking delivery of Bitcoin, that's going to be, that will take Bitcoin to 99% dominancy. And that will open Bitcoin to uses that are just currently unimaginable in my mind, because now you actually have a way, and it would, the large whales would naturally, one of the first banking mechanisms that should come into play is that the large whales will actually be providing security be the bankers for the miners. Because one of the things that when you're hedging, and I've seen this happen in the past, in order to do a really bona fide hedge, you don't know how much financing it's going to cost. So you really have to have unlimited funding behind you, depending, you know, upon the asset. And I've actually seen a case where, you know, there was a small cattle feeder who sold his feeder cattle on the CME, profitably hedged his position, thought he had bank funding behind him. And of course, it was during the 1973 inflation, and the market kept going up and up and up. And the bank kept meeting the margin calls for him until they didn't. And then they called them the loan. So he took the loss on the futures and a loss on the cattle, and it just wiped him out. So, the large players have basically banks behind them. And that's why, that's what broke the humps in the 1980 silver market too. I mean, that's another story. But I'm really fascinated with this because I see a huge opportunity in bakkt to become the premier exchange. Now, that's not going to hurt the derivative market because most of us will stay on the derivative. We'll hedge what we do on bakkt, real underlying asset, we'll be hedging it on the derivative that Arthur Hayes has created. But this is a very important feature and extremely bullish for Bitcoin if we have a place where we can take delivery and get it out quickly, so that we're not dependent, on taking extreme exchange risk by keeping it in this exchange, so-called secure storage. I'm sure that that will be done, but to make it really secure, we still have to have an on-ramp and an off-ramp, and I don't see it there. And maybe it's there, and they're just not telling us. And what's the mechanism of bakkt? Please tell us.
What I'm seeing right now, they have their custody solutions. They call it the Bitcoin warehouse, bakkt warehouse, and apparently they claim it's as let's say revolutionary. There's even an article about it. At the ATM, in the sense that the warehouse opens both withdrawals and deposits for customers based on the contracts. They're really up and up about it, but still have to look more into it.
Well, you know what? Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll start looking into it. Maybe we have to contact, because it is a separate entity, and talk to the bakkt warehouse to see what all is involved. Because that's, for example, in gold, that's what you did every, if I have a certificate in Iron Mountain Depository and want to get it out, they have their own rules. Well, here's what you have to do to pick up your gold. And maybe maybe we are barking up the wrong tree by going to the exchange, but usually on the commodities, the exchanges publish that information. So you can go and find out that information of how do you get your gold out that you bought and taken delivery of, or how do you make deliverable gold available on the exchange. That's because that's really an important thing. I mean, the hunts got busted because the industry found an entirely new silver mine sitting on people's fireplace mantles. And you can still pick up those old pictures in the 1980s where people were lining up outside these gold and silver shops and selling their silver for $50 an ounce, which was only $5 an ounce a few months earlier. So, and, there was a whole new supply that came in. Now there's going to be some real problems on Bitcoin because that feature is not there. We know that there is a limited supply of Bitcoin. So in order for this to fly, we have to have a mechanism to get it in and out of those warehouses in a timely manner. And I mean, if they figure that problem out, this is extremely bullish for Bitcoin.
Right. Otherwise, it's just a centralized party, pretty much keeping all the actual keys and delivering certificates instead of that, right?
Okay.
You guys
Well, at any rate, so we haven't solved that problem, have we? It's still Arthur Hayes and BitMEX is the premier exchange until shown otherwise. And I know I'm very excited about the bakkt if they can deliver on what they're saying, but I haven't seen, the truth is in the details, and I haven't seen any details that show me it's truly deliverable. I mean, it's pretty easy to take delivery, but what if I want to pretty easy to make delivery. I send them my Bitcoin, but how do I get that Bitcoin out of there is not answered. And I don't really want to be holding their certificates, even though it is a separate entity and all that. That's undermine what Bitcoin is all about. So hopefully I'm sure they're aware of that. And, it might be, it might be a regulatory issue. And it might just be, right now we have to assume they're just blowing smoke until shown otherwise. So I'm from Missouri, you got to show me.
Yeah, if you go to the actual bakkt website as of this moment, so they tell you how the daily futures contract works, all that stuff, physically settled daily futures contract, blah blah blah. If you go down to it, it says that. So for instance, it says delivery location, and it just cites the bakkt warehouse, which is, to my knowledge, not a physical location. So.
Right. No, it's not. It's just basically all they're going to need is some kind of a data center. It's going to be a data center, a secure data center, which there's plenty of those around. And, I'm sure that there should be more than one data center. I don't know why there couldn't be more than one approved depository like there is with gold and silver. I don't know why it's limited to one. And which is fine initially. I don't see that as a problem. And maybe it will be more efficient just with one. But I still don't see anything that tells me, okay, I can send you my Bitcoin and get the certificate. I haven't seen the rules on that, how long it takes. In other words, let's say I send him, I think the minimum contract is 10 Bitcoin. How long does it take for me to, after I send them the 10 Bitcoin, to have a certificate that is then considered to be deliverable? I mean, does it, my idea would be, 72 hours after they get 30 confirmations or something like that. And then if I'm taking delivery, how long does it take for me? I've made my request. Here I am. Please send me my Bitcoin. And how long? I mean, we know how we do it on BitMEX, and I love the way they do it. It's once a day, and they come in, and I like that for security reasons. They have no reason. They don't have anything, I think, on a cold wallet. They're all, a hot wallet. because they're only going to send it once a day. They're not trying to provide the kind of liquidity that are provided on other exchanges because they value the security. So I don't know. I mean, I've looked at that, but do you see any answer there? I haven't seen any answer at all.
It says final settlement, physical delivery in the back warehouse, delivery locations, the back warehouse, and the last and only delivery day. It's the second exchange business day after the contract date.
Yeah, but what are they delivering? A back certificate.
Yeah, that's the question.
That's the problem. They're creating a centralized Bitcoin unless they can create it so it's not centralized. Now it's okay for it to be centralized for a time, like it is on BitMEX. I mean, basically, when the Bitcoin that I have on BitMEX does not belong to me. It belongs to Arthur Hayes and BitMEX. Not my key, not my Bitcoin. I get it. The same thing applies with bakkt. So, is this a truly deliverable contract, or is it a hoax and a Hotel California situation where, send us your Bitcoin and we'll give you our certificates. And now these are tradable on our own little system, but it's centralized. And if that's the case, then bakkt's not going to fly. It's not. They haven't solved the problem. So I think they can. I mean, I'm not a programmer, but it's not that hard to do it. I don't know that they're probably willing, but I'm betting that maybe they can't. That the big boys understand it too. And this may be, more of a deception than it is anything that's truly deliverable. So we shall see. And I'm just ugly old goats calling you out on this, bakkt. Hopefully you'll be able to answer it. I do hope that maybe somebody from bakkt can come to the financial summit that Tone Vase is having. That would be a great time to address that. And incidentally, anybody that is going to, I don't know if there's spots open or not, but if you do sign up, it's expensive. It's like $9,000, but everything is taken care of, including your drinks, I guess, as luxury accommodations. If you sign up under my name, I will give you 3 hours of free consultation time. And you'll also get a lifetime subscription to the newsletter. I want to briefly say too, guys, I'm way behind. I haven't looked at support tickets or anything. I still recovering from the cruise and just busy doing. I'm so excited about this cruise and the young people that were there. We're going to put together. I'm writing 2 big articles now. One of them is going to have every speaker that's there. Your friend Zazo Duarte, he thinks a lot of you, David. So
I appreciate it.
Our featured speaker, young up and comer, and he's just all. We need to have a lot more enthusiasm about Bitcoin. And I always say that's one thing that I liked about BitConnect. The hey, they have lots of enthusiasm. So that's what I try and run too. I'm kind of ugly and old, but I can make a fool of myself. A youngster like you can't. You got to kind of make your bones. So I get it, but I'll have you act like a fool sometimes if you're on my show. Is there anything else you want to say? Any more ideas you have about this? And where can people get a hold of you and see your work?
Well, you can find me mostly on Twitter. My handle is at Kenosha King. I think it's written on the description of the YouTube video. And then you can link it to my Medium or wherever you want. I've written a few articles on on-chain analytics and a few other stuff. Most of the work I do now, it's proprietary, so it stays with the fund for the most part, but hopefully I'll come up with a few articles down the road in the next 4 months.
Now, is it a hedge fund that you guys have put together? Is that what it is? It's just a trade.
Yeah, it's a hedge fund. We launched operations in July 1st. After a year of trading together, Murad and me, we started a hedge fund and just launched recently.
Oh, we got a visitor. Castusas, did you want to jump in here?
Who's here?
Is Castusas on here?
Yeah, he's right there.
Oh, can you hear us, Castusas?
It's his video,
Gus?
or his audio, I think.
Okay. No, we don't, I see him, but I don't hear him. So at any rate. So yeah, I've read your articles and I'm familiar. I've never met Willie Wu, but he's done some really interesting work. You guys are kind of not in my pay scale. So when you bring this stuff to a level where ugly old goat can understand it, we can probably go farther. But he's done some really cool stuff. I know you guys have segregated this, the total amount of Bitcoin into the amount of Bitcoin that's really not hodled, that's active. And it seems like a really good way of measuring things. And my understanding is, he's not as bearish as some of these other people are because of that model. But I'm looking forward. He's going to be down there at Bali. I'm really looking forward to meeting him because I know you guys have done some fantastic work, and maybe I'll be relaxed enough and have time enough I can understand it. But I'm willing to share anything I understand, but I'm smart enough to keep quiet about things I don't. So.
Yeah, it's pretty much detecting who's holding, who's buying, who's selling, but on the blockchain, right? And since most of the movements in the blockchain are more of investors as opposed to traders, speculators on the short-term time frame. You can first principles get, maybe this is a better signal to get mechanisms to measure long-term movements in price and adoption. That's pretty much the basis of on-chain analytics. Apart from that, there are also a few indicators that give you very decent short-term signals, like dormancy and the SOPR invented by Renato Shirakashi. Dormancy was invented by a guy called Reggie Smith. I co-wrote an article on dormancy, which is pretty much pinned on my Twitter handle right now. So if you go to my Twitter, you can see it right away.
Is it on Medium too, or is it on Twitter?
Yeah. So just go to my Twitter, Twitter at Kenosha King, and the pin to it is an article on dormancy that I have.
Well, I'm kind of weird because I did this all backwards. I'm only now doing the YouTube stuff, and Twitter. I started out on Medium. So,
It's
why
I've been a reader.
I don't know of anybody else that's done that, but I started on Medium and then it just went from one place to another. And
no, it's just style, and you're a very good writer, by the way. You're a very funny writer, very engaging writer. Yeah, I've enjoyed your stuff for a year. And how long have you been writing? I think I've been reading.
I think I started in April of 2017, but yeah, and then now I've got to have a website because I was actually, Medium, I didn't know I was actually banned or taken down from Medium for a day because I think I put a picture. I had, yeah, they can have sex. I had a sexual one with sexual innuendo, but I put a picture there of goats being slaughtered, and they shut down. Apparently, somebody reported it as, unfit for human consumption or something, but they restored it. But now it makes me worried. It's so easy. I mean, to get deplatformed now for anything. I've got some articles cooking. I'll probably get deplatformed. So when I get done with them, I'll keep on Bitcoin, but I have some pretty good war stories to talk about too. Hopefully I can get.
Yeah, that's the best part, man. That's the best part. all of us up on cameras. That's the thing we want to hear about, the war stories from the old trader OGs, right?
Well, I'll be glad. Hopefully, I'll be blessed enough that I'll be able to do it. I really do enjoy writing articles, and but man, it's hard. I mean, I've adopted. I've got 4 adopted children now, and so that's more important than Bitcoin. So incidentally, You're a young man there. You need a wife and children to be the best thing that will happen to you. That's advice from an ugly old goat. I don't know where you are on that. But
let's just say I'm working on it.
Okay. Well, let us know because we'll be glad to celebrate with you. That's a bigger blessing than Bitcoin.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you on that.
Well, anything else that you want to share with us, or are we pretty well covered the bases?
No, it was great. An honor talking to you. You're one of the legendary traders in the space.
Well, here, I'll make it so you'll probably never want to appear again, because now you got to be silly, okay? Because I believe in hodling, okay? And hodling is out, and then you save. Once you hodl long enough, you reward yourself and take your wife out to dinner, or take a special vacation, or buy a new car, or get a new computer, whatever the size of your huddle is. And then there is builda, and that is we build whatever we do. If you're a doctor, you want to be a good doctor. If you have a car wash, you want to make good car washes. Construction, you want to build good houses. And I don't do much except, well, I have a little business, a voice broadcasting business, but I'm getting more and more into Bitcoin. So my whole idea is I want to develop the content, and we're slowly getting better at that. So successful Bitcoin trading can be summed up into 3 principles that anyone can understand, and that is to hodl and save and builda. Save is actually savvy. It's a SAYVV.
Yeah.
So I do this little dance, and we can close out together here. We kind of go to the left as we go hodl, 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 save, builda, sound money. All right. Okay, that's good. Now you got to get enthusiastic. Now, David, I really like you. I had you on the show. This was kind of heavy. But everybody can understand this, but you got to be enthusiastic. You got to get some enthusiasm. Ready? Let's do this one more time, and then we'll sign off. Here we go. Okay.
I'm a shit dancer.
Here we go. Ready? Now, say, build. Sound money. All right. Thanks for coming on, Dave. We'll do this again. Maybe we'll find out what bakkt's really up to. I hope they have a deliverable contract, but I got my fingers crossed. Show me bakkt. Would love to have a deliverable contract. It will take Bitcoin to a whole new level. And I do believe that we're in for the up and coming is going to be the longest sustained bull market Bitcoin's ever had. Not only in price, but also in duration.
By the way, Ugly, I wanted to ask you, what do you think of the local action? You're still bullish, or one leg down and then up, or bottom is in?
Well, I haven't seen the price. Where are we at now?
We're at 81.67.
Yeah, we got it. You know what? We have to break out of this 8,200 area and then hold it. If we hold it, normally you sell the high, right through the high, weekly high, you sell it. We didn't get up there. We tested the high. We didn't even break through the weekly high. So if we can't, the basis is telling me now that, hey, you know what? You don't want to be long. Next time if it breaks through that 7,800, you don't want to be long, because this basis is, I was hoping that the basis would stay, way down there, but it's pretty well. Where is it now? Are you looking at the market on BitMEX? How far is decent mark over?
Basis recently. Let me check right quick. Because the other side is not working right now. So 1 second. Live trading.
Okay, people want to know what happened to your face, because you're all sloppy on one side.
Hey, you got to go. You got to go to the early part of it. I explained that early on the video. Somebody just said like it's a blood clot or something. I thought I had a stroke, but I'm recovering. Hopefully, you know what? It's a mess. I got to get spoon fed. They got, scoop the drool off my face. But yeah, I went to the hospital last night because I didn't know what happened to me. But hey, I'm still going on, and I'm under observation. My wife says, you need to let me know if anything happens to you. So where's our basis now? Can you see it? I can look on my phone.
The December contract is around, so the spot price is around 167, 163. The December contract is at 82.19, and the March contract is 82.86. So it's over 200 contango on the March contract.
I mean, it's the whole thing is, and it's too early to say, but if this thing fizzles, I mean, the thing is, we bought it right. Hopefully we get out before, I'm looking at my equity. I know where I'm getting out if this thing doesn't follow through, but you just keep plugging away till you hit it. And we both recognized a situation the other day where, okay, it's a good time to take a stab at it with a decent risk. And that's what it's all about. And we don't know. I'm the first one to admit, I don't know where the market's going. That's not how if you're worried about that, you're not playing the game correctly.
Yeah.
So, because my opinion can change overnight, and it all depends upon that market action. And it's disappointing right now. If we follow through and could slowly grind above 8,200 and then accelerate, the technicals all get bullish when we go back over 11,000. But can they even get above 8,200 and stay there? Well, we got to do that first. So can't.
For sure. For me, the levels to watch are 82. Print a good close above it and stay above it. Not just range around it as we've been doing in the last few week and a half or so. And if we break and sustain the 87, 88 level, that's extremely bullish for me. That's a weekly level, and we went down pretty fast. So if it accelerates out of the bullish RSI divergence we have right now, which is quite scary.
Yeah, and normally I would say sell it, above the week up there, that 85 to 88 area, because if it goes up there, let's go up there first. But the whole thing is, I measure it by weekly highs and lows. We're still in a bear. Anyway, I measure it. We're in a bear market, but everything changes. If you sell it at 85, your risk has got to be way up there, at 10,000, where's the 2-week high is. So it's really not. It's a high risk sell. I'm a position trader, and I don't mind if I can just trade and break even. I'm happy with that, because I've always come out ahead by a long-term positioning. And I don't like to buy, if it goes up, I want to be already in the market if it goes up to 11,000 when everybody else starts getting bullish again. Because that's how you build a position, and that's how you run 2 Bitcoin into 30 Bitcoin. I mean, that's just the way you do it. And I don't buy breakouts. I want to buy dips. I want to establish a position. And, if it's not working, I bailed out completely the other day because it wasn't performing like I wanted. I got out, and then it came back 3 days later. I said, well, here it is again. I'll just stick my toe in the water again. And that's how you do it. And it's not a matter of the bad question. People are asking me the wrong question if they ask me where you think the market is going. Now, if they want to ask me whether I'm long or short, I will tell them. But it's not the correct question. Nobody knows where the market's going. So better to ask, what are you going to do if it gets there? That's the better question to ask.
What would you do if it dumps? What's your validation level? When will you get out? Will you get in again? All that, for sure. Right.
And my fundamental view changed when that market went into that steep backwardization. That's when I said, that this might be it. This thing could reverse. And it didn't, by doing it that way, I didn't get it. I mean, I didn't make anything, but I didn't get any big trouble over it either. And if it works, it will really work. And if it doesn't work, it should be a scratch. And that's what you're looking to do over the long run. That's all you can do. So I don't rule out $3,000, under $3,000 Bitcoin. And I don't rule out that we could be testing all-time highs before the end of the year. Which one? I don't know. That's what we're ready for. That's why we're traders, right?
Yep. Let's go. Let's get it.
All right. And hey, if you're not having fun, that's the other thing too. I was trading, not having fun. And when you're not having fun, just get out of the market, because it's not fun.
Yeah, you're going to get wrecked that way. Yeah. It completely demoralizes you, and you get wrecked.
So you need to get out, take a breather, and then come back. I'm having fun now. And, I probably need to set some closer stops or something, but we'll see. I'm really glad I had you on. Hopefully things go well with your endeavor, and I'm looking forward to I don't know if I'm comfortable trading for myself. I don't think I could ever trade for anybody else. I feel so responsible because I'm publishing all my trades, and
Right.
I feel very responsible to show people, how to do it and how, I mean, because you can take. I noticed Doug Puell did. I don't know if he succeeded or not, but he said he was going to try to turn $100 into $5,000 playing poker. And I don't know, I didn't watch it, but that's what he's going to attempt to do. And so that's hopefully what I'm doing. And you can do it repeatedly in these markets. There's most small traders stay small traders, but a few small traders become large traders. But I guarantee you, a lot of large traders become small traders.
Yep.
A lot, and you just don't hear about it. So
it's a very unforgiving job to be a trader. Yeah. It's very asymmetric, and it's a serious sum game. So you should always be safe out there. That's for sure.
Okay. Hey, really glad we got together. Have to do it again. We will if we find out more about bakkt. I really hope it's a deliverable exchange. That would be so bullish. I guarantee you, if it is what I hope it is, Bitcoin is going to make all-time highs by the end of the year. If it's not, and the market says it's not, then it's a big fizzle and it's not going to fly. If they can make that so it's a deliverable contract where we're not having to keep it on their centralized exchange, and we have our private keys, and we can have I don't expect every 24 hours like we see on BitMEX, but I would expect 72 hours from before delivery that you can make a deliverable contract onto the exchange, and 72 hours to get it out of there. They do that, and it's a bombshell for this market. It really is. And but apparently I'm not the only one that's skeptical, because I haven't seen anybody address it. So bakkt, if you see this, please let us know. Are you for real?
Not much attention by anyone on bakkt.
Nope.
Very quiet. And the volumes agree as well. I think on over 200 Bitcoins per day trading volume.
Yeah, but why haven't they addressed this issue? That's just my big question. It's so simple. If they do it, that's gonna be the bullish announcement. The day they show, now somebody's doing it, so I need to find out who. That information should be available too. Who makes and takes delivery is always public information on the exchanges. I don't know if on commodity exchanges. So that should be information we could get too, and maybe just talk to people who are already using the contract. So anyway, it's a big mystery to me. Keep up your work on funding. I like your work, but I won't claim I truly understand it.
I appreciate it anyway. I'll take it. Okay. I'll take it. I mean.
You bet. We'll see you.
See you. Thanks for the invite.